You're gonna be here. You're gonna come. You don't have to sit if you don't want to, but yeah, this is the. You should be comfortable. This is the chair of. This is the guest chair.
What does it say on page 511?
It's it has a couple of options. Everything in the prayer book has options. You can do it.
I would probably just. Lawrence, likewise, not through a screen. A human being.
To roll, to rumble. Chag Sameach. Actually, not yet. Shh, not yet. Shabbat Shalom still. For another few minutes. Shh. Right? No, almost. We can say both. Good?
I know what I'll do.
But are you going to have people say names and stuff? Come here. Yeah, come. I parked you next to me. Cantors like having fun too, you know. Welcome, everybody. Should we do you want to do the Nigun right now, like while people are hanging out?
Yeah.
I was doing it in D.
Sounds good to me.
All right, I think we need to just start singing, even if our service isn't beginning. I need to get this chag started, as they say. Welcome. We're just going to dive right in. Welcome from the Zoomiverse, the YouTuberverse, wherever verses you're from. We're glad that you're here. We're small but mighty to begin with. I'm sure we'll have more folks coming in as the evening goes, but welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm Cantor Meredith Greenberg.
Cantor Kenneth Freibush.
You are going to get to meet all kinds of people this evening as we celebrate the Chag, who are going to be offering up kavanot and prayers. And especially our guest, Rabbi Katz, is going to do much more of an introduction in a moment, but now we're just going to dive in. We're going to start with a little melody for the holiday, because it feels right, and then we'll make Havdalah. So here we go. We're just going to sing this on La La La. As soon as you hear this melody, you know the Chag is very near. Do you want to play, or do you want me to play? I can play this one.
Go for it.
So here we'll go, just a little gentle. La la la, la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la ya la 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 ya la. Try it once more. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la, ya la la So welcome. We're gonna make the lights a little bit low. We're gonna make Havdalah, because that's what we do when we get together when we start. I know it's a little bright, but you know what? It's okay. Yeah, just, oh, yes, oh, maybe back, yeah. That's nice. Very, very nice. So, Ronnie Pressman is going to be our master of Havdalah ceremonies, and we are going to begin on the very back of our prayer book. It's the one page number I didn't.
And my
look for.
guest holder is Steph Laurie.
Oh, excellent.
She's excellent. Come here, Steph. Come over here. You
We're
can hold
going
it
to
like this.
invite you to page 612. La,
La, la, la, la, la, la, la, la, la, la, la, la, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei bisamim borei bisamim la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamavdil ben kodesh lecho ben hor lechoshet ben Yisrael amim ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yamei hamaseh
Kodesh to Kodesh.
Baruch atah Adonai Kodesh ben Kodesh lecho Kodesh ben Kodesh lecho Chatotenu yimcho Zareinu v'chazpeinu Yabecha kol V'chakol kavim balayla Shavuatov 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 Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Hatishbi Eliyahu 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 Hagiladi Bimhera v'yamenu Mashiach ben David.
So a Shavua Tov and a Hag Sameach, everyone.
Shavut Tov for 30 seconds.
My name is Rabbi Mark Katz, for those who don't know me. And we're going to be including throughout the course of our evening a number of other voices of clergy from around our community, and they'll make sure to introduce themselves as well. Tonight is a really special night, not just because it's Shavuot, not just because we get our 4 congregations to come together, but because we are going to experience something unlike what I think almost any of us have ever experienced tonight. Our scholar tonight is named Yael Kanarick. And I'm not going to read her bio because it's in the back of the packet that you have, and you can look at it yourself later. But Yael is a talented teacher, artist, and poet. And Yael did something extraordinary. She regendered the whole Torah. Every feminine word is now masculine, every masculine word now feminine, every male name is feminized, and every female name is masculinized. And the reason that she did that, and she, by the way, when it was suggested to bring her here, and the person who suggested it actually was David Greenstein from Congregation Shomrei Emunah, I got in touch with her, and I asked her to kind of show me a little bit about what Torah, which is what she calls her project, is about. And the amazing thing about seeing a Torah regendered is it opens your eyes to all the implicit gender that is in the Torah that you often take for granted. So we're going to do this in a number of ways tonight. We're going to do this both in our prayer service, as we get a chance to regender many of our prayers and get a chance to pray in a way that often we don't realize that we are praying, that every word in Hebrew is gendered and carries with it implicit meaning. And then after that, after a festive oneg of some cheesecake and other things, we're going to come back together and we're going to hear from Yael, who's going to show us a little bit about that project and some key passages from the Tanakh that she has translated to help us understand the way that gender plays a role. And then after going off into our classes, and by the way, in the break, you'll find put up around the room a number of schedules so you can decide where you want to go. We're going to come back together to hear the 10 Commandments and once again, play around with gender. Now, know that some of the most important pieces of this prayer service for you may feel unfamiliar, and we're going to try the best that we can to give some of the familiar melodies and some of the familiar words that you may be used to put up against Torah. But know that you may be stretching yourself tonight, and that's okay. The goal is to experience anew our prayers, and the only way to do that is to be shocked a little out of your system. Now, for the unfortunate news. Yael got in touch with us, and she has COVID. And so we wish her a refuah shlema. But the amazing thing about the world that we live in post-March 2020 is that it's completely normal for somebody to be our teacher on a screen. And so Yael is joining us virtually and will be able to give us exactly the same product that she would have had she been here, but just with her face on a screen. So if you're having trouble hearing her or seeing her, we'll invite you throughout the course of the night to move around to make sure that you can. So with that, we're going to invite you to look to your prayer books, look to your packets, and to spend the evening with openness to hear the way that these words can wash over you, and they can teach you the way that gender plays a role in everything we do. Chag Sameach.
So we invite Rabbi Weitzman to lead us in our Nerot for the festival, our candles, and you can find the text, B'Torato, on page 384, but you'll see on the screen, B'Torata. Oh, sorry. Slicha. Yeah.
How does this work?
We're also,
This is the hard technology.
this is the technology of the evening.
Baruch Tova Eloheinu Malkat Haolam Asher Kidashatnu B'mitzvoteha V'tziftanu Lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov. Baruch Tehova Eloheinu Malkat HaOlam Shechet Yatu Vekimatnu Vehigiatnu Lazman Hazeh Baruch Tehova Eloheinu Malkat HaOlam Shehecheyatnu Vekimatnu Vehigiatnu Lazman Hazeh.
Amen. Yeah, we say amen different, right? I'm pretty sure.
I'll ask you to join me on page 386. It's not going to be on the screen. It's the regular words.
So we're going to really work on that. We're going to say B'Torah To instead of regular, normal, old, or original. We're just going to say B'Torah To tonight and B'Torah Ta and see what that feels like. All of us. Thanks.
If you told me that yesterday,
Sorry.
we would have done that. But right now, I'm going to use the regular words that we normally use. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'ramimanu mikol lashon v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav Batiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag hashavuot hazeh Mikra Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu Vacharta Viotanu Kidashta Mikol Ha'amim Umoadei Kodshecha B'Simcha Uvsason Hinchaltanu Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim.
Amen. So we're going to just take a moment to really arrive. There are a lot of moving parts when you are trying on new things and new ideas. So I'm going to invite those who are able to rise up on your feet and to take in the welcome, the azimun. Repeat after me. We're going to change it up and call out to God in all kinds of ways. Barechu. Dear one, Shekhinah, holy name, Barechu, dear one, Shekhinah, holy name. As I call on the light of my soul, I come home. As I call on the light of my soul, I come home. One HaMevorach. Together. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam ha'ed. As I call on the light of my soul, I come home. I come. As I call on the light of my soul, I come home.
I'm Rabbi Grafman from Temple Shalom of West Essex and Cedar Grove. We're on page 396. I invite you to all read together in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhma poteach sha'arim, ובתבונה משנה עיתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם, ברקיע כרצונו, בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Continue together. I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about the place of God names. But for me, I always remember Ahava started out already in Nekeva. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amecha Avita Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochreinu נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיים לאורך ימים אורך ימים ואהבתך לתסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. So we have our first opportunity to learn from our teacher, one of our teachers for tonight. We're so grateful that you're here with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me well?
Yeah.
Sorry for this coarse voice, but I'm so moved and so delighted to be with you through Zoom, but still with you. So what's gonna happen is I'm going to insert, a few ideas as the service goes. And further down the line, I'm going to explain in a fuller sense what is Torah, how it came about, what drove this initiative. But for now, since the next thing that is coming up is the Shema, we in Torah have the Shim'i. And I just want to open up a little bit and reveal the language and how it changed in Torah. The line is Shim'i Tisraela Tehova Elohoteinu Tehova Achat. Shema is Shim'i. Israel became Tisraela. The name Israel is made from Israel, which Yaakov received when he was wrestling with God, and now it's Taakov who wrestled with Goddess, and thus the name became Tisraela. It also means that the name of the people now is the daughters of Tisraela in Torah. We're looking at everything, the same stories but centering on women with men as their helpmate. Elohotenu, and this is really something really interesting that only became very acutely, I became acutely aware of, was that Elohotenu is actually plural. Eloheinu, our gods. Elohotenu, our goddesses. Tehovah Achat. Now in Bet Torah, we call out the name Tehovah. Tehovah, what was in Torato Yud Hey Vav Hey, in Torah is Taf Hey Vav Hey, as the Yud in Hebrew is future tense for male, and in for the female it's the Taf Te is the future tense for female, and thus we arrive at the new name for God, another name for the divine, Tehovah. I did a little exercise where I translated the names into English, and the translation that I came up for the name Tehovah is future present, future tense te, and Hey Vav Hey is also the root for being and the root for present moment. So you can think of it as a place, as a moment to bring the attention to the present moment, this call. Thank you.
So we invite you to close your eyes for this first sounding of a text we know so well, and it will be new. Shim'i Tisraela Tehovah Eloheinu Tehovah Achat. Shim'i Tisraela Tehovah Eloheinu Tehovah Achat. We continue in this tradition, choosing to hear both B'Torato v'B'Torata. Invite you to hear the sounds and to join a little bit in both, or whatever feels like the experiment that's calling you. We turn together onto the screen, or else to page 402. ואהבת את תאווה אלוהותייך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצוותך היום על לבבך, ושיננתי עם לבנותייך ודיברתי בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתים לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עינייך, וכתבתים על מזוזות ביתך ובשערייך, למען תזכורנה ועשיתן את כל מצוותיי, ויתן קדושות לאלוהותיכן. אני תאהבה אלוהותיכן, אשר הוצאתי אתכן מארץ מצרות, להיות לכן לאלוהים, אני תהובה אלוהיכם, אני תהובה אלוהיכם. Now, the Micha Mocha text, of course, we know comes from our Hebrew Bible, and we're going to get to spend a lot more time exploring how intensely different it would be to have grown up with the option or with these other ideas percolating around. But I have to tell you, Yael and others, that as I was practicing earlier, it slips in pretty quick after a little while. Start doing it really without feeling too different at all, which is exciting. I want to invite us all to turn now to page either 406 or to the screen once more for us to experiment with this of another biblical text. And we're going to use our melody for the Chag once more. Just get ourselves in once more. Ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya ya la 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 ya la ya la ya la la mi chamoch bailot teova mi chamoch neder bakodesh nora tehilot asafele la ya la la ya la ya la ya ya בוקיים לפני משה ומרים זה אלי ינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וביעלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל תשחיילה.
Top of 409. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
Try it again.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, השכיבנו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו השכיבנו be our shelter from life's storms. One more time, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
So we find our announcement for the festival at the bottom of page 411, or you can see it, actually it might be in our packets, but here it is on our screen, and I invite those who are able once more to rise up on their feet as we prepare to enter into our Amidah. Vatidaber. I had this. Because I can't remember what you did with Moshe. Really? Are you sure? Positive? Oh, it does? Good. ותדבר משה את מועדי תאווה אל בנות ישראל. So we invite you to experiment in this handout, and of course to enter into the prayer book. We will just do this opening kavanah together. Invite you to the center pages in your handout. Adonai sfafatai tiftechi ufi agir tehilatech. We continue privately.
I think I have 5 minutes now.
Ooh, you definitely do.
Okay, great.
So we're going to let people just pray privately because I sent them in already.
Very well. So you'll give me the cue. Let me know when you're ready.
We're going to do a little, that was my bad, everybody. But we're going to sing Osa Shalom. We're going to bring it together with a little piece. And then, Yael, you're going to teach us. Okay? So we join together.
Shalom במרומיה, כי תעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל תשכילה ועל כל יושבות תבל עמי עושה שלום במרומיה, כי נעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל תשכילה ועל כל יושבות ממורנה יעשה שלום, תעשה שלום שלום עלינו ועל כל תשכילה תעשה שלום, תעשה שלום שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. תעשה שלום, תעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. תעשה שלום, תעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל מעונה. אמן.
So, Yael,
Yes.
does it make sense
Mm-hmm.
for you to teach us what you were going to teach us now that we've already done prayed our Amidah?
Yeah, let me just explain the names because they're so different.
Great.
Okay. So I just want to explain how we got to Emrama, Titzchak, Taakov, Sahar, Marbek, Ail, Vepar. So all the names in Hebrew mean something in the Bible. Sometimes the meaning was lost, but in most cases the meaning is really clear. So Avram, high father, became Emrama, high mother. Yitzchak, he will laugh. Titzchak, she will laugh. Yaakov, he will follow. Taakov, she will follow. Sarai became then later Sarah, means minister. So it became Sar and later Sahar. But when it became Sahar, it also is referencing the moon, actually. So, and then we have Rivka. Now we're going to the patriarchs because we started with the matriarchs, and now we're going to the patriarchs. We have Marbek, who was Rivka. Rivka has possible two meanings. One of them is a noose that holds animals. Or there's a term called Egel Marbek, which refers to veal, the fattening of the calves. So Marbek references that. Rachel, which means Rachel, we know as Rachel. Rachel means mature sheep, female sheep. Became Ail, which is the male form of the Rachel. And Par, which means bull, is the regendering of Leah, which probably comes from Akkadian and means wild cow. Now, in our culture, we don't think of the wild cow as a revered object or a animal, but in ancient times it was. It was a name of honor, but yes, indeed, the matriarch's name in Torah refer to farm animals, and that's how we arrive at Marbek, Ail, and Par. So these are the names. The other thing to understand about Torah, that in the same way that in Torah, the boys are the prime child, in Torah, the girls are the prime children. So the fathers desire to have daughters as a way to establish their status in the social order. And they're desperate for their daughters, and they fight for their daughters. And this is one of the gifts of Torah to men. It gives voice to the family-oriented men, the men who care for their daughters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we take a moment now to think about the need for healing. I invite Rabbi Tupperman to come up and lead us. We turn to page 511.
You don't need to look at the page. So let's just start with saying the names of people that are on our minds, who in our hearts, that need healing. Mi sheberach Avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, ve'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Bilha, ve'Zilpah. May the one who blessed our ancestors be present with all of those who've been named tonight. Be present with our country. Be present with our world in all the ways it needs healing. O source of life, we feel this breath. We hear these sounds. We smell the world around us. We recognize how precious is life. May it be that through this moment of presence and of intention, we reach out to those we love. We reach out to those who are suffering, whether it be in mind or body, in spirit. May it be that by setting aside this time for prayer, we strengthen and build and repair our community. And let us say, Amen.
Yael, we are now ready to hear you teach,
Great.
and we're excited to bring you back to the screen.
Thank you.
And it's all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here. Chag Sameach, everyone. I wanted to share with you how Torah came about. I grew up secular in Israel. My dad, my grandfather was religious. And as a child at an early age, I had a religious inclination. But as I grew up, I felt that I was being pushed out of the space of study that I craved, actually. And I remember my brother had his bar mitzvah, and he studied, and I got a party. But that kind of closeness and affinity that I felt to the text at a very, very early age, there didn't seem to be a place for that that felt close enough and central enough. And I drifted away, and then I grew up and I became an artist, and art became the place where I expressed myself most. I came to New York 30 years ago. I was actually born in New York, but grew up in Israel. Came back to New York 30 years ago, and maybe 15 years in, I came across a file that describes, in Hebrew, it was a file in Hebrew, describes the relationship between the branches and the roots. I had no idea what was written in there, but I wanted, whoever wrote it, it felt like they knew what they were talking about, and I wanted to know what they know. And I arrived at a school of Kabbalah, and I started studying Kabbalah. It was actually Kabbalah that brought me back to Judaism. In Kabbalah, a spiritual practice, I found that I have some space in there, that I'm learning things that are applicable spiritually. But again, the language is written from the perspective of men to the world. And I'm not saying that as a fault necessarily. It's just the way it's written. And after 10 years of study, I felt that I reached an impasse. I arrived at a place where I could not receive any more from that source. And I needed to get closer. And how would I get closer? How do I get closer to the text when I'm always, when I read it, almost always outside the text? I want to talk about two things now. I want to talk about the little word amen. The word amen has the root aleph mem nun. And that root produces many, many words in Hebrew. And I want to read to you some of those words. The word emunah, faith. The word amana, treaty. The verb lit amen, to practice. Le'amen, to train. Lehamin, to believe. Omanut, art. Oman, omanit, artist. Umanut, craft. Omna, support. And omenet, or omen, caretaker. All these words come from that root. And for me, as an artist, I was seeking a place where I can be creative in my Judaism. I can apply what I know how to do as an artist to my Jewish life. And after I realized that previous life in Kabbalah has in a certain way ended, I wasn't able to receive from the teacher anymore. I practically threw a spiritual tantrum and like, I need this, and how do I get this? And if enani mili, if not me, then who? If not now, when? I decided to see if I can get closer by regendering the text so it positions women, the chovah, in relation to the goddess, and maybe I can identify through that. So I did that. I sat down with my computer, and mind you, I grew up with the same kind of ideas that Torah cannot be touched, the text cannot be changed, and so I had that embedded anxiety in me, just, that we know. And I was typing a few verses from Genesis, and I looked up and the ceiling did not fall on my head. But what did happen is suddenly I felt that the language and the sound of Torah suddenly became from like volume 2 to volume 10. Suddenly, through the chovah, I could be in likeness and image with Tehovah in a way that I could never ever feel before. Because before, the chovah is the helpmate. She is generation removed from the direct relationship with Tehovah. And then I realized what agency means. When you have that connection, that first connection is to a divine and not to a human, then there is a much more expanded sense of self that starts to grow. And then I understood also that it's my responsibility to tell my helpmate how to help me in that relationship. And then I thought, wow, if we can bring those two sides together, then we can start seeing something that feels like a Torah Shlema, a complete Torah, where each of us have a direct relationship with the divine, and we are there to tell each other how to help each other in that process. And this was a huge revelation for me. So then I said, okay, what else is here? And I just started doing the whole thing. And it took 4 years, and actually COVID helped. I had COVID also the first time around, but I was, everything shut down. I was like, I'm just going to finish the Chumash. And I finished the first draft of the Chumash. And it was the first time that I felt that I understood Torah, that I understood what was the project of Torah, that building of identity, that construction of identity through wrestling with the divine. And it's a consciousness of a peoplehood that I understood for the first time as well. And all of that was revelation. And I started sharing this work. And the first event we did was at Romemu in New York in collaboration with Lab Shul. It was a Gen Network event. And it was the first time that we read from Torata and Torato. Hebrew, Hebrew, English, English. And it was an extraordinary moment. People were crying. It was so deeply moving. And it felt that something happened, something real has happened. It's not about me. It's about a consciousness that is growing, and more people start to join. Tamar Biala from Israel joined me to work on the whole Chumash all over again. And she comes with deep knowledge of Jewish life as she was raised Orthodox. And then more people joined, and we started teaching. We do a weekly teaching, and a community joined. And I want to welcome on Zoom members of the Bet Torata community who are here with us today. And it's just, so it just grew. And about 2 years ago, we launched Bet Torata as a house of study, and we published so far in Hebrew Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and names. This year we're going to finish the Chumash, and then as we go along and do the teaching, we translate into English, which will be increased in volume as soon as we finish the Chumash. The idea is to translate the whole thing, to regender the whole thing, because these are narratives that speak to each other, and the learning is really deep and tremendous. So I just want to say a few things about what I've learned from studying Torata in Chavruta. The first time people meet Torata, there is a feeling of unsettling. There's a feeling of confusion. Familiar stories suddenly sound new, but familiar at the same time. And it takes a little bit of time to settle into it and to let the new language form new ideas. So if you feel unsettled, that is completely normal. But as Cantor Greenberg said, we do adjust. We're very adjustable creatures, and we do adjust relatively quickly. And then new things emerge, new ideas emerge, new thoughts emerge, because even though it's a mirror image of the stories, the way we interpret and understand them is not mirrored. We don't understand them in the same way. We understand them in new ways. The other thing that has become really precious about Torata is that now when we bring Torata and Torato together, everyone is at the table on the same level. If we have a story like, for example, the Akedah, the binding of the child, it's the mother taking her daughter, the father taking his son. We can talk about parents sacrificing their children, but we're all at the table. And many of our stories in Torah, Torato and Torata are difficult stories, right? Torah is not a stroll in the park. It really is boot camped. It's a training for our soul, right? But we're there. Everyone is there. Now, the other thing that the rise of Torata, the coming of Torata into the world enables is the creation of other stories. We can take characters from Torata and characters from Torato and cross them over to create LGBTQ families. Or, there are other points of entry into the stories and the situations that Torah enables us. So it's been an extraordinary journey so far, and I'm so honored and delighted to bring it to you. And I'm so grateful to the rabbis and the cantors for the willingness to integrate that into service. I don't take that for granted. And it's been, my heart has been singing, hearing the prayers in that way. Absolutely extraordinary. So I look forward to the teaching that I will do, where we're going to review some of creation stories, some parts, and some parts that describe, that show us the relationship between Moshe and Tehovah. Very unique relationship. And I would be very interested to learn how you experience it when we do our Q&A. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Yael, and we'll get to study with you more, Yishar Kochech, and we can all rise, please, for Aleinu. We turn either into our packets or into our prayer books, page 586. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצרת בראשית, שלה עשתנו כגויות הארצות, ולה שמנתנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלה שמה שלה שמה חלקן כהן וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים לפני מלכת מלכות המלכות הקדושה ברוכה היא. ונאמר והייתה תאובה למלכה לכל הארץ ביום ההוא תהיה תאובה אחת ושמה אחת.
Please be seated. In a moment, I'm going to call for names as we move into the section of our service where we remember those who we have loved and who we have lost. But before we do that, I want to say a word about the Kaddish in Torah. Now, when we say the Kaddish, we're going to use the words that are the most familiar to all of us, though I want to invite us, if you want, to glance at the page, which is in the packet, which will allow you, should you decide, to also accompany the words that I'm going to say in Torah with your words of Torah. And I want to pause for a second and think, just for a moment, about what it really means to say the Kaddish should you choose in Torah. Now, for those who know, what the Kaddish really is it's a praise of God. And after you lose a loved one, you open your lips and you say the words that are so hard to say. You say, God, you are great, you are mighty, you are awesome. But I want to pause for a second and think about, well, what does that really mean if God is king standing before us? What would be the motivations that we would be standing in front of God, calling God in the midst of our greatest grief, wonderful and awesome? Is it because we fear that God will lose faith in us? Is it because we are so saddened that we want to find a way to connect to this figure that feels distant and powerful? Is it that God's name is lessened in our eyes because of the trials that we've just been through and we need to build God up? And then I want us to flip. And I want us to imagine not a male king standing before us, but all of what female imagery has to show. Things that are traditionally female. Things like the nurturing and the love, the spreading, as we find in El Molei Rachamim, God's wing over us to take us in. And I want us to ask ourselves, though there is no right answer, what does it change for us if instead of staring a male God in the face, we are staring a female God? Why might we choose in a different way to praise God in that moment of grief? So I'll invite us now to rise in our places if we are remembering a loved one, as I call each category of mourning. And then we'll move into the mourner's Kaddish, inviting you to choose either of the two texts. If you're in Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning, I'll invite you to rise and stay standing, saying the name of the person for whom you're thinking. If you're in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, I'll invite you to rise. If you're in Shana, the first year of mourning, I'll invite you to rise and share the name of the person for whom you're thinking. And if you're observing a yard site, if today or even this week marks the anniversary of a loved one's death, I'll invite you to rise and share their name. We rise together as a community. As together we join. We're on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. B'yamad divrach yiriteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayed l'chol Beit Yisrael. B'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'arko Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'arko Yisrael v'imru amen. With the source of peace and peace to you who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, amen. Please be seated. So we're going to move into the concluding section of the concluding prayer of our service and song of our service. But before we do that, just a few logistical announcements. So following services, it is now perfect timing. 8:35, we were aiming to be done by around 8:45. We're going to spend about 30 minutes joining together in a festive oneg. Now, the amazing thing is that we have 4 different communities together. We have B'nai Keshet, we have Temple Shalom, we have Temple Ner Tamid, and we have Shomrei Emunah together in one. And so because of that, you probably don't know everyone in the room. So make a point to introduce yourself, especially to someone that you think might be from another congregation. And that way we can begin to build community over the course of tonight as you enjoy our festive oneg with cheesecake and many other goodies. We'll be back in here at 9:15 as we learn more with Yael. And then we've got classes throughout the course of the night, a 10:30 slot and 11:30 slot. You can find on the wall all around, we have I think maybe 4 or 5 schedules on the wall, the list of where the classes are and what they are, so you can choose where you want to study and with who. And we'll be back here all together at 12:30 p.m. to read our 10 Commandments together, ending around 1:15 or so.
And if you can't remember any of that, it's written in the lobby.
One more time for now.
All right.
We'll make our motzah together.
We should make our motzia together, and that is we have the text for everybody. I thought, am I wrong? Yael, will you lead us in our motzia? Here it is. Oh, goody.
All right.
Okay. Brucha at תאהבה אלוהותינו מלכת העולם, אשר קידשתנו במצוותיה וציוותנו על נטילת ידיים.
Good, we're washing. Like at my house for Seder. Keep going.
ברוכה את, תאהבה אלוהותינו מלכת העולם, אשר קידשתנו במצוותיה וציוותנו להוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen. Thank you
Hag
so much.
Sameach, everyone,
Hag Sameach. Go eat something.
and meet someone new.